M2, the replacement TikTok app, is on its way. Or is it? I don't know. Nobody knows.
Business owner, educator, and lifelong observer of politics and economics, making sense of complex issues.
If you know anything about the TikTok ban, you'll know that there has been a law in place now for some time, and President Trump keeps extending the time limit on when TikTok has to be sold, divested, as everyone is saying, by ByteDance, the parent company. And it is coming up to the time when really something has to be resolved, and yet, crickets. There's nothing. A couple of months ago, there was some talk about an M2 app that was being developed, and since then, nothing. So, where are we with TikTok, the servers, the algorithm, China, and the US? Let me see if I can put this into some kind of perspective. Fair warning, I have no new information. So, as we know, the TikTok ban is in place. TikTok must be sold. Why must it be sold? Because the US government fears the Chinese government having access to US users' data. The government believes that if the algorithm and the data is controlled by China, that because social media is so powerful, it may be that American users will be susceptible to propaganda or, I don't know, some other form of their information being used against the US. So the US government brought out this law to make foreign ownership of social media by an adversary illegal, and this is where we are today. TikTok, a Chinese app, is owned by China, who is regarded as an adversary. Now, on the other side of that, China doesn't allow the US to have any apps in full service in China. Either they have their own version of TikTok, which is, of course, also owned by ByteDance. So there are two companies, well, probably more, but at least let's just stick with these two. One is ByteDance, which is registered in the Cayman Islands. And then there is ByteDance Technologies, which is, I think Beijing, could be Shanghai, but it's registered in China. ByteDance Technologies owns the algorithm. They own the tech. Now, as far as the Chinese government is concerned, because of their own export law, ByteDance Technologies is not allowed to sell off a large part of itself to any foreign country or any foreign company. Because of their export law, technology that was developed in China is to stay in control and ownership of a Chinese company. That's their law. So ByteDance has the algorithm, they can't sell it. But ByteDance Technologies is not ByteDance. ByteDance, the Cayman Islands company, is the one that owns TikTok US and all the other TikToks around the world. So where is the conflict here? If ByteDance owns TikTok and they don't own the algorithm, shouldn't they, under Chinese law, be able to divest themselves of, whatever percent the US wants them to sell off of US TikTok? I personally don't understand why that's an issue. But let's move on. On the other side of this is the US wanting to have all the US users' data kept in the US. So for people like me in Japan, people in Australia, in Europe, and all around the world, all your data goes through the ByteDance servers in China. As of this year, and since 2022, the data of US users has been shifted to Oracle servers in the US. So no longer does US data go into China. Now, why doesn't that satisfy the US policymakers. And this is where it gets really confusing. So for people like you and me, well, maybe you understand this more than I do, but for a lot of people, it seems like at this point the Chinese government should be happy and the US government should be happy. But there's still a problem. The owner of the app in the App Store is still ByteDance, and the US policymakers are not happy with that. The other thing is, a more technological side of it is that even though the US data is kept in the US, there's nothing to stop the parent company ByteDance, the owner of TikTok US, from copying that to servers in China. Now, I don't know how that is a problem, even if they can do that. For me, it's always been understood that the two problems that I mentioned at the beginning of this was the one, that people could be manipulated with propaganda, and two, that their data could be used for nefarious purposes. Well, if the data is kept in the US, but it can still be copied to servers in China, then that would be a reason that the US policymakers are not satisfied with the current situation. So it may be that because of those two things, one, that the app in the app stores is owned by a foreign adversary, and that the servers can still be copied to that adversary's servers, we may have to get a new app. Now, my understanding of that is, why can't they just work something out in the back end of the app that exists so that they sell off the US company, they sell off that app, and they maintain a stake in it? The US government's okay with that. ByteDance can have 20%. This is what M2 is reported as being. And just keep the app as it is. Why does it have to be a new separate app? And then we think, well, where is this new separate app? We've been told it's coming, but it's not coming. So is it the case that this is what's going to happen? And if you're confused, I'm still confused, because the way I see it is, even if TikTok ByteDance still owns 20% of this new M2, or whatever it's going to be called, TikTok US, doesn't the issue still exist that they can copy the data to their servers if they want to, or does only having a 20% stake mean that they can no longer do this? I don't know. So I'm going to keep following this. I'm going to keep checking on it, and if you know anything, you can let me know here.
If you're still here, honestly, you have no idea how much it helps if you subscribe. I'll keep these coming.